Here's Dennis Prager to say things 3 weeks ago that he probably wouldn't be saying today.
For the first time in history, billions of people, including healthy people and people living in free societies, have been confined to their homes. So let me offer you 3 lessons about life based on what you've experienced. Number 1, life is hard. It's unfair. It's unpredictable.
Life is unfair is a favorite slogan of people who benefit from that unfairness. They don't want you to complain about it, they don't want you to ask them to care about it, and they certainly don't want you to ask them to do anything about it. And ironically, when they think life has been unfair to them, they don't hesitate to complain or to try to get the rules changed.
Until now, most young people, at least in the West, did not appreciate how true this is. You've been living in a time and place in which so many of life's hardships have been overcome. You've probably lived a healthier, safer, and freer existence than almost any young people who ever lived before you.
Well, not a wealthier one. Adjusted for inflation, minimum wage is the lowest it's been in over 40 years. If you're in the bottom 20% of income earners, you're making less than the folks at the bottom were making 20 years ago. And it's not clear that folks are healthier now than in the past because life expectancies in the US have been declining for several years.
And if that is true, you would only know about how hard life is if you've read about the sufferings of others, such as the awful suffering people endured during World Wars I and II, not to mention the starvation and disease of the medieval and ancient worlds.
And part of the reason why those problems are not as severe, at least in the West, as they were then, is because people tried to improve things. They tried to make things better and more fair. They didn't just resign themselves to acceptance of the status quo. If we want things to continue to improve, we have to continue changing things for the better. Conservatives, by definition, are folks who try to slow or stop that process.
Number 2, always be grateful. Gratitude is probably the most important trait you can have, because it is the source of both happiness and goodness. In other words, you cannot be either a happy person or a good person unless you're a grateful person. Unfortunately, most people don't learn how important gratitude is until it's too late. I'll bet this makes a lot more sense to you now, thanks to the coronavirus pandemic. How often have you thought of the good old days when you could go to a restaurant with friends or to a sporting event or concert, or visit a relative you love? But were you grateful for those things when you were able to do them? Probably not. So now make this promise to yourself. I will not wait until I lose the good things in my life to be grateful for having them. Or to put it another way, adopt an attitude that has guided me all of my life. If nothing's horrific, life is terrific.
In other words, if you're not constantly screaming in agony, stop complaining. Stop trying to change things for the better, especially if it means asking the wealthy to make sacrifices.
Number 3, freedom is fragile, very fragile. The ease with which most Americans acquiesce to the removal of many of their most basic rights, even if you agree with that removal, should take your breath away. At the very least, it should make you realize how easily any government can take away people's most elementary freedoms. This happened around the world, but I single out America because no country has been so free for so long. America, more than any country, has symbolized liberty. That's why France gave America and no other country the Statue of Liberty.
The rationale behind the Statue of Liberty is shrouded in legend, as they say, but at least part of the reason for it was to congratulate the U.S. for finally abolishing slavery. That's why she has the broken shackles at her feet. This was something that Britain and France had already accomplished decades prior, and the statue, at least in part, was presented to say, good on you for catching up.
Yet people living in states with fewer deaths from the virus than from car accidents acquiesce to living under house arrest, except to get food or medicine.
What's your point? That they should have waited until after it killed more people than car accidents?
Being barred from walking outside with more than one other person, and being barred from walking their dog without wearing a face mask. Remarkably, they acquiesced to all this as they watched their life savings, their family business, or their job disappear. Now again, you may agree that this should have been done even in states with almost no deaths due to the coronavirus. I don't, but that's not the issue here. The issue is how easily modern governments can become police states.
This video was uploaded on June 1st, 2020, and in the following few weeks, conservatives pretty quickly switched from fear-mongering about police states because of rules that kept people from killing other people, to calling for a police state because of the folks trying to stop cops from killing other people.
In sophisticated New York City, the mayor appealed to people to send the police photos of fellow citizens gathering in groups of more than 2, or not wearing a face mask outside. You may think all this was reasonable, but what is to stop governments from doing such things when you don't think it's reasonable?
Well, as we've more recently seen, the people, at some point, do put their foot down when the government gets out of hand. Ironically, it is conservatives who seem to have the biggest problem with this. The "don't tread on me" folks who protested the lockdowns seem to have really meant tread on them instead. To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.